You've been programmed to stay broke, stuck, and exhausted. Here's how to break it. They don't want you to know this, but you were never meant to thrive in the system they built. You were trained, not taught, programmed, not empowered. And if you're broke, exhausted, constantly second-guessing yourself, it's not because you're weak. It's because that's exactly how they want you. Think about it. From the moment you were born, you were fed scripts. Scripts that said, work hard, stay quiet, follow the rules, seek approval, play it safe, don't question, don't rest, don't dream too big. Just keep running. In circles. And the more exhausted you get, the more you doubt yourself. The more you doubt, the more you obey. That's the game. And it's rigged. But here's the truth. You don't have to stay in the loop. You don't have to keep living like your energy is disposable, your time is worthless, or your purpose is optional. Because once you see the programming, really see it, you can break it. And when you break it, you don't just get money. You get freedom, you get clarity, you get yourself back. This episode is your awakening. We're going to decode the chains in your mind, rewire the beliefs that keep you small, and apply the timeless power of Stoic philosophy, not as an idea, but as a weapon. Step by step, I'll show you how to rise above the system that's been quietly draining your soul. And we begin with the most dangerous lie they ever sold you. You've been programmed to stay broke. Let's be brutally honest. Most people aren't poor because they're lazy. They're poor because they've been taught to think like poor people. And I don't mean bank balance, I mean mindset. Because the real poverty isn't just in your wallet, it's in your beliefs, your habits, your sense of possibility. You've been programmed, day after day, year after year, to accept less than you're capable of, to believe that success is for others. That ambition is risky. That dreaming is naive. Look around. From school to social media, you're fed the same message in 100 subtle ways. Stay small, stay obedient, work hard, but not too hard. Be humble, but not too ambitious. Be grateful for what you have, even if it's slowly killing your spirit. And if you're broke, well, that's just your fault. Try harder. But here's the dark truth. The system benefits when you're broke, not just financially, but mentally. A mentally poor person is easy to distract, easy to manipulate, easy to sell to. They don't ask too many questions. They don't push boundaries. They follow trends. They buy what they're told to buy, and they work just enough to stay tired, but never empowered. The Stoics would have called this slavery. Not chains on your hands slavery, but chains on your mind. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But the modern world flipped that upside down. It taught you to obsess over outside events, status, income, attention, and completely ignore the one thing you can actually control, your inner power. You've been trained to believe that wealth is something given to you by others, by the job, the system, the gatekeepers. So you wait for opportunity, for permission, for luck, all while wasting the most valuable currency you'll ever own, your time. And that's the saddest part of all. Not that people live without money, but that they die with potential still locked inside them, dreams never acted on, gifts never developed, all because they accepted a false story. I'm not the kind of person who gets rich. But here's what the Stoics, and every wise philosopher, would tell you. Wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you build. First in your thoughts, then in your choices, then in your habits. If you feel stuck, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're following a script that was never written for your success. So tear it up. Challenge the voice that says you're too late, too unqualified, too average. That voice isn't truth, it's programming, and like any program, it can be rewritten, but only if you see it for what it is. The moment you realize that being broke was never your destiny, it was a default setting, you gain the power to rise, not in fantasy, but in steps, in rewiring your mind, in rebuilding your systems, in taking back control, one decision at a time. You weren't born to live in survival mode. You were born to create, to expand, to lead. But until you break the mental programming that says you can't, you won't. So ask yourself right now, who taught you that wealth wasn't for you? And why are you still believing them? Break the chains in your mind. No change is possible until the chains in your mind are exposed and shattered. Because long before your habits became destructive, long before you accepted a life of good enough, before you even knew what you were capable of, someone, somewhere planted thoughts in your head. Thoughts that became beliefs, beliefs that became your limits. And those limits, they still live there, in the quiet corners of your mind, dictating what you try, what you fear, what you settle for. The Stoics understood this before modern psychology ever gave it a name. Epictetus didn't speak of neuroscience, but he knew its essence when he said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them." In other words, your reality isn't made of facts. It's made of your interpretation of those facts. And when that interpretation is poisoned by fear, by shame, by cultural programming, you end up living in a prison with invisible bars. Think about how early it starts. You're told what's realistic, what's too much, what's out of reach. You're warned not to aim too high or speak too boldly. You're taught to avoid risks, defer to authority, seek approval. And even though you grow up, the voice stays. It becomes internalized. You stop needing others to keep you small. You do it yourself. You'll recognize the chains in your mind by the thoughts that follow you like shadows. I'm not that kind of person. People like me don't do things like that. It's too late for me. What if I fail? What will they think? These aren't thoughts. They're traps. And the tragedy, most people never even know they're trapped. They build entire lives inside those mental limits, careers they don't love, relationships that drain them, routines that numb their spirit. They call it stability, but it's really submission, a quiet surrender to a life they didn't choose, but inherited. But here's the radical truth. Your thoughts are not fixed. Your beliefs are not your identity. They're patterns, and patterns can be broken. The Stoics practiced this every day. They called it prohairesis, the power of reasoned choice, the understanding that while you can't always control what happens, you can always control what you make of it. And what you make of it depends entirely on how free your mind is. So the first step in breaking the cycle isn't changing your job, your partner, your location. It's changing the lens through which you see all of it. Because once you change that, everything else follows. This is where awareness becomes your weapon. You start noticing the lies you've been living under, the way you silence yourself in meetings, the way you discount your ideas, the way you shrink in rooms you belong in. Not because reality demands it, but because a story in your head says, stay small, stay safe. And to break that, you don't need motivation, you need truth. And truth isn't always comfortable. It tells you you've been lying to yourself, that the fear isn't coming from the outside, it's coming from within, that the chains aren't around your wrists, they're in your thoughts, that the enemy isn't out there, it's the voice you've mistaken for your own. That's where Stoic practice comes in, not as philosophy for ivory towers, but as a daily tool for breaking internal bondage. When you journal your thoughts, you make the invisible visible. When you reflect on your day, you begin to notice your default patterns. When you question your assumptions, you create cracks in the walls of your inner prison. And with every crack, light gets in. Eventually, you stop asking, "Am I allowed to dream bigger?" and start saying, "Who told me I wasn't?" Because here's what they don't want you to know. The chains in your mind don't just limit your success. They feed someone else's comfort. Every time you stay stuck, someone else profits. Someone else stays in control. Someone else benefits from your fear. So don't just break free for you. Break free as an act of rebellion, as a refusal to stay enslaved to narratives that were never yours. You were not born to live and die inside the cage of other people's expectations. You were born to see clearly, choose boldly, and live freely. Not someday, but now. And the first door you must walk through is the one inside your mind. The hidden cost of staying stuck. Most people don't realize they're paying for their comfort with their future. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," or "maybe next year," or "I'm not ready," you're not just delaying a decision, you're signing away hours, days, even years, pieces of your life that you will never get back. The real cost of staying stuck isn't just the money you didn't make or the goals you didn't reach. It's the version of yourself you never got to become. That's the price. And it's staggering. We tend to think that staying in the same place is neutral, that if we're not growing, at least we're safe. But that's a lie. Stagnation isn't safety. It's slow decay. While you're waiting, doubting, hesitating, life moves on without you. The world doesn't pause for your procrastination. The clock doesn't care about your fear. And the older you get, the heavier the weight of your unrealized potential becomes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." That's not morbid. It's clarity. Every day you spend stuck in the same loop is a day you could have used to build something real, not just in business or finances, but in who you are becoming. But the tragedy is that we often don't feel the cost of stuckness until it's too late, until it shows up as burnout, regret, resentment, or deep inner emptiness. Staying stuck bleeds into everything. It poisons your confidence. It drains your energy. It erodes your self-respect. You begin to trust yourself less because you see the gap between what you say you want and how you actually live. That gap breeds self-doubt. And when you doubt yourself long enough, you stop trying altogether. You accept mediocrity, not because it satisfies you, but because you've convinced yourself that it's all you'll ever get. And that's the most dangerous kind of suffering, the silent one, the kind that doesn't explode, but slowly wears you down. You keep smiling, you keep performing, but inside there's a voice that whispers, "This isn't it." And when you ignore that voice long enough, it fades, not because the longing disappears, but because you've trained yourself not to listen anymore. Stoic philosophy isn't just about enduring pain, it's about refusing to waste the time you've been given. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And he's right. You don't need more time. You need more courage. You need to stop calling stuckness stability. You need to stop mistaking hesitation for wisdom. Because while you're overthinking, life is passing. And here's what makes it worse. The longer you stay stuck, the more it becomes your identity. You begin to say things like, "That's just who I am," or "Maybe I'm not meant for more," not realizing that those are the words of a person who's accepted the cage as home. But the cage was never locked. You just stopped reaching for the key. So what's the answer? It begins with brutal honesty. Ask yourself, what is staying stuck actually costing me? Not just in money, but in peace, in purpose, in potential. What would my life look like if I had taken action 6 months ago? 1 year ago? What would I lose if I stay like this another year? And then make that cost real, write it down, feel it, let it hit. Because once the pain of staying stuck becomes greater than the fear of moving forward, change becomes inevitable. You're not weak because you feel stuck. You're human. But if you stay there, if you keep calling it normal, then eventually it becomes your prison. And the worst part? You'll have built the walls yourself. But you can also tear them down. You don't need to escape overnight. You just need to stop settling. Stop delaying. Stop lying to yourself that next week will be different when you haven't changed anything about this week. Because the longer you wait, the more of yourself you lose, and you've already waited long enough. Stoic secrets to real wealth. What if everything you've been taught about wealth is a lie? Not an accidental misunderstanding, a deliberate distortion. Because if you knew what real wealth was, you wouldn't chase status. You wouldn't burn yourself out trying to impress strangers. You wouldn't measure your success by numbers in a bank account or likes on a screen. You'd measure it by freedom, by clarity, by how peacefully you can lay your head down at night and how purposefully you rise in the morning. See, modern culture equates wealth with possession. The Stoics saw it as liberation. Marcus Aurelius never defined a rich man by what he owned. He defined him by what didn't own him, and in his meditations we see it clearly. A man who ruled an empire but still believed the soul's power mattered more than the crown. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That's real wealth. The kind no recession, betrayal, or market crash can ever take away. We've been programmed to think wealth is an external chase. Earn more, buy more, show more. But when your sense of worth is tied to things, you become owned by them. The house owns your peace. The car owns your identity. The job owns your time. You become rich in appearance and bankrupt in soul. Real wealth begins when you flip that script, when you stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I live without?" That's not minimalism for aesthetic's sake. That's mental liberation. Because every craving you conquer is a chain removed. Every fear you face is a deposit into your inner treasury. And every time you choose your values over the crowd's approval, you become wealthier than the richest celebrity who's still enslaved by the spotlight. Seneca put it like this: "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." In other words, poverty is not measured in dollars. It's measured in dependence, in desperation, in the inability to be still without needing more. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing wealth for the sake of wealth, it starts coming to you in new forms, in peace, in health, in deep work, in time, in relationships built on truth, not transaction. And, yes, even financial prosperity, when it aligns with service and integrity, flows easier when you stop chasing it like a drug and start building it like a life. And this is why Stoic wealth isn't just theory, it's intensely practical. The Stoics didn't avoid money, they just refused to be ruled by it. They practiced discipline, clarity, detachment, and self-control, the very principles that modern wealth building demands. Because the truth is, if you want to build financial freedom, you must first build mental freedom. Otherwise, you'll sabotage yourself at every turn. You'll overspend to impress people who don't care. You'll undercharge out of fear of rejection. You'll stay in toxic jobs because you fear starting over. You'll avoid investments in yourself because you still think you're not worthy of more. That's not a money problem. That's a mindset problem, and it's fixable. It starts with re-asking the question, what does wealth mean to me? Strip away the noise. Is it control over your time? Is it peace of mind? Is it the ability to walk away from anything that insults your soul? Then, good. Now you have a new definition to build around. The Stoic version of wealth is simple. Own your life, own your choices, own your focus, own your inner world. Because once you do, no one can buy your silence, rent your integrity, or sell you a version of success that costs you yourself. You don't need to be a millionaire to feel rich. You need to stop being enslaved to the craving for more, because enough is a moving target unless you define it. And once you do, that's when you become untouchable. Reprogram your brain for freedom. You weren't born stuck. You were taught to stay that way. The thoughts running through your mind daily, most of them aren't even yours. They were planted there by parents, teachers, society, media, the culture you grew up in. You were handed a script, and without realizing it, you've been living it ever since. But here's the good news. Just like any script, it can be rewritten. Your brain is not a fixed machine. It's a programmable tool, and once you understand this, the power shifts from the system that shaped you back to you. Neuroscience now confirms what the Stoics practiced over 2,000 years ago. The brain adapts to what it repeats. It rewires based on your habits, your self-talk, your routines, your focus. This is called neuroplasticity. It means the person you are today is not permanent. It's just the result of patterns you've repeated long enough to believe were you. But belief is not truth. Belief is repetition. And if repetition created the cage, repetition can break it. Epictetus understood this when he said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's a two-step method to reprogram your life. Clarity, then conditioning. You decide who you want to become, and then you begin. One small thought, one decision, one habit at a time, until that identity becomes reality. But most people never do that. Why? Because they keep trying to change their lives without changing their thoughts. And it never works. You can't build a new life with the same mental code that created the old one. It's like trying to run new software on an outdated operating system. It crashes every time. So what does reprogramming actually look like? It starts with awareness. Begin by observing your inner dialogue, especially in hard moments. When you fail, do you say, "I'm not good enough," or "I'm learning something here"? When opportunity knocks, do you default to fear or curiosity? Most people repeat disempowering thoughts so often they become invisible, but once you shine a light on them, you regain choice. You can say, "This isn't my voice, it's my conditioning, and I'm done living by it." Then comes the work of replacement. This is where journaling becomes a weapon. Don't just vent, rewrite. Don't just describe what went wrong, define what can go right. Use your journal to rehearse new beliefs, new standards, new responses. Use it to build a new script. The more you write it, the more real it becomes. Visualization helps too, not as fantasy, but as mental rehearsal. See yourself responding differently. See yourself standing tall when you'd normally shrink, speaking when you'd normally stay silent, choosing action when your old code would freeze. Your brain doesn't distinguish much between imagined and real practice. Use that to your advantage. Another powerful tool, mantras, but not the fluffy kind, not I'm a millionaire when you're behind on rent. Use Stoic affirmations grounded in action. I have control over my effort. I don't need their approval. This discomfort will make me stronger. I am not my fear. I am the one observing it. Say them out loud. Write them. Repeat them daily. Not because they're magic, but because your old programming is loud and truth needs a voice too. And finally, take action even when it feels unnatural, especially then. Your brain only rewires through experience. So if your new belief is, I can handle discomfort, you need to actually sit with discomfort and survive it. If your new belief is, I am disciplined, you need to show up for your habits even when it's inconvenient. That's how belief gets sealed, through repetition and evidence. The Stoics didn't wait to feel like new people. They acted as if they already were, and let the mind catch up. That's reprogramming. It's not theory, it's training. Mental, emotional, behavioral training, until the old scripts lose their grip. So ask yourself, what's one old belief you're still living by? And what new one are you ready to replace it with? Write it, repeat it, live it. Because freedom isn't found in a single breakthrough. It's built through consistent rewiring. And the moment you take responsibility for your programming is the moment you reclaim authorship of your future. Discipline, your escape route. Let's be clear, no one escapes the trap without discipline. Not motivation, not inspiration, not even talent. Those things flicker, they fade. But discipline, that's the engine. The rope you climb with bloody hands when there's no elevator coming. And in a world addicted to shortcuts, discipline is the ultimate rebellion. It's the act of saying, I will not wait to feel ready. I will show up regardless. You see, you've been conditioned to believe that discipline is punishment, that it's harsh, rigid, joyless. But that's another part of the programming. Discipline isn't oppression, it's liberation. It's structure that sets you free. And the Stoics knew this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, warrior, wrote in his private reflections, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. That's discipline. The quiet, relentless commitment to right action. Not because it's glamorous. Not because you feel like it. But because you said you would. And that's the key. Your word to yourself. That's the muscle discipline trains. Every time you wake up and follow through, even when it's inconvenient, you become stronger. Every time you resist the urge to procrastinate or make excuses, you reclaim power. Every time you do what needs to be done, with no audience, no applause, you build the kind of confidence that can't be faked. Most people are stuck, not because they lack potential, but because they lack structure. They wait to feel like it. They wait for clarity, for permission, for the perfect moment. But the truth? The perfect moment is after you've done the work, not before. Clarity comes from action, not the other way around. And that's why discipline is non-negotiable. It's not just about results, it's about identity. Discipline says, this is who I am now. I show up, I build, I follow through. And that repetition becomes your new reality. Over time, it becomes automatic. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop looking for the exit every time things get hard. You learn to carry yourself through discomfort, not escape it. Seneca warned against being a slave to pleasure and comfort. He said, "Throw me to the wolves, and I will return, leading the pack." That kind of strength isn't born in comfort. It's born in repetition, in doing the hard thing over and over until it becomes your default. And here's where most people get it wrong. They wait to feel disciplined before acting disciplined. But that's not how it works. You become disciplined through action, not emotion. It starts with one decision. Wake up when you say you will. One habit, write, train, study, even when no one's watching. One boundary, say no when it's easier to say yes. And once you keep that promise to yourself, again and again, you start to believe it. You begin to realize, I am no longer the person who gives up on himself. That belief is powerful. It bleeds into every part of your life. You start walking differently, speaking differently, making choices with intention, not impulse. And soon, your entire reality shifts, not because the world changed, but because you did. Discipline is your ladder out of the pit. Each step, each small daily act of self-control gets you closer to freedom. It doesn't matter if you feel tired. It doesn't matter if you're scared. What matters is that you move, that you do the thing anyway. Because every time you choose discipline over comfort, you remind yourself, I am in charge now. And when that becomes true, when you lead yourself with consistency, not convenience, you don't just escape the cycle, you burn it down. So ask yourself, what would my life look like if I kept just one promise to myself every single day? Start there. That's how the climb begins. Redefine success the Stoic way. What if everything you've been chasing isn't actually success? Look closely at what the modern world glorifies. Shiny cars, designer clothes, curated photos, bank balances inflated by debt, and the illusion of ease. But behind the filters and flexing, there's often a quiet hollowness, anxiety, insecurity, a fragile identity built on performance. We've been sold a version of success that looks good on the outside and feels empty on the inside. But the Stoics knew better. They defined success not by what you accumulate, but who you become, not by how much you own, but by how well you live, how calmly you endure, how bravely you act, how honestly you speak, and how intentionally you choose your path. That's the kind of success no one can take from you. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." This insight flips the entire narrative. You could have little and feel rich, or have everything and still be starving for meaning. That's because success in its truest form is a life in alignment with your values. A life where you don't have to pretend, where your actions reflect your principles, and where your peace isn't for sale. But here's the catch. Redefining success requires brutal honesty. It means you have to stop living someone else's dream. Maybe your parents wanted you to be safe, so they taught you to play small. Maybe culture told you success was fame, so you chased attention. Maybe fear told you to stay busy, so you mistook movement for progress. Whatever the source, it's time to unplug from it. Because if your definition of success makes you miserable, it's not success. It's a trap. The Stoic approach is to strip life down to what matters most: character, virtue, clarity, and freedom. Epictetus said it simply, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Imagine that. Success not as excess, but as enough. Enough integrity to sleep peacefully. Enough courage to act without approval. Enough discipline to delay short-term pleasure for long-term strength. You don't need to escape to a cabin in the mountains to live this way. You just need to redefine your metrics. Instead of asking, "How much did I earn this month?" ask, "Did I live today in alignment with who I want to be?" Instead of asking, "Did they notice me?" ask, "Would I be proud of this if no one ever saw it?" That's the test. Would you still pursue your path if there were no applause? This mindset doesn't make you weak. it makes you dangerous. Because when you stop needing the system's definition of success, you become unmanipulable. You no longer jump through hoops for status. You no longer sell your soul for social points. You operate from principle, not pressure. And ironically, this is when true success starts to show up, financially, emotionally, spiritually. Why? Because you're no longer leaking your energy trying to please, impress, or compete. You're focused, centered, clear. And that kind of person is rare, which makes them valuable, not because they fit the mold, but because they've outgrown it. So here's a challenge. Take a moment and write down your current definition of success. Be honest. Is it based on truth or on fear? Is it yours or one you inherited? Then rewrite it. Define success in a way that honors your highest values, not your deepest insecurities. Because the day you redefine success is the day you begin to truly live. Break the cycle, step by step. Most people dream of escape, but few are willing to build the staircase. They want freedom from debt, from exhaustion, from emotional chaos. But they wait for a miracle, a breakthrough, a sign. They think transformation is something that happens to you. But the truth is far less romantic. Transformation is built, brick by brick, habit by habit, step by tiny, invisible step. And the biggest lie that keeps people stuck, the idea that change must be massive and instant, that if they can't overhaul everything at once, it's not worth starting at all. But Stoic wisdom and modern science teaches the opposite. Progress is not about grand gestures. It's about direction, consistency, intention. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly," and he was right. The chains that keep you stuck were built over time, years of unconscious choices, fear-based thinking and passive living. So breaking them won't be a single explosion. It will be a daily process, a reprogramming, a conscious act of rebellion, one small choice at a time. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like getting up 30 minutes earlier, not to hustle, but to think, to journal, to stretch, to reclaim time before the world's noise floods in. It looks like saying no to that third scroll through social media. And yes, to 10 minutes of reading something that expands your perspective. It looks like setting boundaries with people who drain you, even if it makes you uncomfortable. It looks like spending 15 minutes on a passion project instead of watching a show you won't remember tomorrow. It looks like writing the first sentence of a book, making the first sales call, or simply drinking water instead of soda. Not because it changes everything in one day, but because it declares, "I'm done living on autopilot." These actions seem small, but stacked over time, they become unstoppable. They rewire your brain. They rebuild your identity. Because every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how tiny, you reinforce a new narrative. I am becoming the kind of person who doesn't give up. This is how the Stoics lived. Their discipline wasn't dramatic. It was daily. They practiced stillness, clarity, detachment. They tracked their behavior. They reflected each night. They didn't wait for motivation. They created systems. Because systems don't rely on feelings. And if you want to break the cycle, you need systems that carry you through your weakest moments. Seneca reminds us, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. But preparation doesn't start when the opportunity arrives. It starts now, in silence, in obscurity, in the routines no one sees. So here's a powerful truth. You don't need to know exactly how your life will transform. You just need to take the next right step, then the next, one decision at a time, 1 hour at a time. If you do that, momentum will do the rest. And eventually, something shifts. You stop needing to escape your life because you're finally building one you don't need to run from. So ask yourself, what's one small decision I can make today that aligns with who I want to become? Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, start there. That's how cycles are broken. Live free. Live with purpose. Freedom without purpose is just another form of escape. You see, many people think they want freedom. Freedom from the 9 to 5, from pressure, from expectations. But once they get a taste of it, they feel lost. Because freedom alone is empty. It's a blank page. And if you don't know what to write on it, you'll go right back to the chaos you escaped from. That's why so many people sabotage their own progress. Not because they hate freedom, but because they never built a reason to use it. The Stoics understood this deeply. To them, freedom was sacred. But it wasn't about leisure or laziness. It was about living in alignment with your highest principles. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man should be upright, not kept upright." That's the key. Real freedom is internal. It's choosing to live well, not because someone is watching, but because you've built a life that deserves your discipline. When you're stuck in survival mode, broke, distracted, drained, you don't have the space to think about purpose. You're too busy putting out fires. That's why reclaiming your time, your focus, your energy is so important. Not just so you can rest, but so you can redirect. So you can finally ask the deeper question, what am I really here for? And no, purpose doesn't always mean saving the world or building empires. Sometimes purpose is subtle. It's in the way you show up, the work you do, the energy you carry. It's being a source of clarity in a chaotic world, a stabilizing force for others, a builder, not just a consumer. Someone who wakes up each day with intention, not just to exist, but to contribute. Seneca said, "Life is long if you know how to use it." The tragedy is that most people don't. They live decades on autopilot, numbing, chasing, reacting. But time isn't the issue. Direction is. When you live with purpose, even 5 minutes feels full. When you don't, even a lifetime feels wasted. So how do you start? You simplify. You strip away what's unnecessary, the noise, the distractions, the fake goals you inherited from society. You ask yourself hard questions. What truly matters to me? What am I willing to suffer for? What would I still do, even if no one ever gave me credit? Then you begin. Small, consistent actions aligned with those answers. You bring purpose into your habits, into your relationships, into your silence. You stop looking for permission to live meaningfully and start building meaning with your own 2 hands. And yes, the world will try to pull you back into comparison, into addiction, into busyness. But the Stoic lives with clarity. He does not chase every new thrill. He does not become enslaved to every opinion. He walks his path, not because it's easy, but because it's his. That's freedom, not doing whatever you want, whenever you want, but doing what matters, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So ask yourself this: if I woke up tomorrow with total freedom, no debt, no distractions, no obligations, how would I spend my day? Now ask, what part of that could I start living today? You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect. You just have to stop living like your purpose is optional. It's not. Because the moment you start living with purpose is the moment you start living free. Stop letting the system control you. Here's the truth you were never supposed to hear. The system is designed to keep you tired, broke, and too distracted to do anything about it. It starts early. You're taught obedience, not originality. You're rewarded for following rules, not asking questions. You're handed scripts that tell you who to be, what to want, and how to measure your worth. Work hard, stay quiet, consume endlessly, and if you're lucky, maybe retire with just enough energy left to enjoy what's left of your life. But deep down, you've felt it, haven't you? That quiet pressure, that invisible hand nudging you to stay in line, to stay small. The Stoics would call this what it is, slavery of the mind. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he warned about the greatest threat of all, becoming a slave to things outside your control. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But most people never get there, because they're too busy reacting, too consumed by the noise, too drained to even notice that the game is rigged. The system doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about your attention, your labor, your spending habits. It thrives when you're too tired to think, too scared to risk, too distracted to focus. That's why everything is engineered to keep you reactive, doom scrolling, binge watching, overworking, overspending. If you're always entertained, always anxious, always needing more, you'll never rebel. But the moment you see it, really see it, you gain leverage. And that's where the Stoic mindset becomes dangerous. Because once you detach from the system's values, you become ungovernable. You no longer define success by status. You no longer seek validation from the crowd. You stop playing a game designed to exhaust you and start building a life designed to free you. How? First, reclaim your time, cut the noise, limit the inputs, turn off the notifications, the mindless content, the constant flood of opinions. Time is your most valuable currency, and every moment you give to distraction is a deposit into someone else's empire. Next, reclaim your energy, audit your habits. How many are driven by true intention, and how many are the result of conditioning? Begin to replace the reactive with the reflective. Daily walks, journaling, stillness. These aren't luxuries, they're resistance. Then, reclaim your voice. Start speaking truth, even if your voice shakes. Set boundaries. Say no. Stand alone if you have to. Because every time you choose authenticity over approval, you weaken the system's grip on you. Finally, reclaim your focus. That's where your power lives. If you can focus deeply, consistently, you can build anything, a business, a body, a new life. But the system doesn't want you focused. It wants you fragmented. That's why your focus must become sacred, protected, non-negotiable. Seneca once said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." That's your job now, not to follow blindly, but to awaken, to step out of the script, to stop letting the system define your worth and start defining it for yourself. You are not here to survive the system. You are here to outgrow it, not with noise, but with clarity, not with rebellion for the sake of chaos, but with structure, discipline, and an inner power that cannot be bought, swayed, or silenced. The system only controls those who forget who they are. And you, my friend, are finally starting to remember. Unleash the power of your inner Stoic. You were never weak. You were just disconnected from your source. Buried beneath the noise, the fear, the overthinking, the exhaustion, lives a version of you that is calm, clear, grounded, and unbreakable. That version is not a fantasy. It's not an ideal. It's a memory, a dormant power waiting to be claimed. And the key to awakening it? Not some external event, not a motivational video, not permission from the world, just one choice: to stop living as the person they trained you to be and start living as the Stoic you were always meant to become. Because Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's not cold, it's not passive, it's fierce, it's active. It's a philosophy of the warrior within, the one who stands still in chaos, the one who sees through manipulation, the one who doesn't need validation because he lives by principle, the one who may be afraid, yes, but still moves forward because fear does not define him. Inside you is that kind of strength. It's in your bones, it's in your breath. And no matter how long you've lived in distraction, in doubt, in the prison of programming, the door has always been unlocked. What you need now is remembrance. Marcus Aurelius ruled over millions, yet still reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That's not nihilism. That's clarity. That's power. It means stop wasting your days. Stop playing small. Stop letting the temporary control the eternal. Your time is not infinite, but your impact can be if you rise. Epictetus was born into slavery, yet lived freer than most emperors. Why? Because he understood that real freedom isn't granted. It's claimed, it's earned, through self-control, through virtue, through the daily choice to align your actions with your values, no matter the cost. And now, it's your turn. You've done enough waiting, enough hiding, enough wondering if you're ready. The truth is, no one's ever ready. No one hands you the title of Stoic. You take it, you become it, through action, through integrity, through the quiet, consistent decision to live on purpose. Start small. Wake up and reflect. Journal your thoughts. Choose silence over noise. Practice presence in your habits. Say no when it matters. Speak truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Every one of these is a battle. Every one of these is a victory. And every day you choose that path, the Stoic within you grows stronger. Not perfect, but real, grounded, clear-eyed, free, because you weren't made to live in chains. You weren't made to endlessly scroll, to perform for others, to obey without question. You were made to think, to feel deeply, to live with honor, to move through the world with a still mind and a steady hand. That version of you, he's not far. He's just waiting. Behind your excuses, beneath your distractions, beyond the noise. So today, right now, stop living as the programmed version of yourself and start living as the one who writes his own code. Because once you unleash the power of your inner Stoic, nothing, and I mean nothing, can ever make you powerless again. You've been programmed to stay broke, stuck, and exhausted, not because you're weak, but because it serves the system for you to remain that way. But that programming, it's not your destiny, it's just a script. And you, my friend, have the power to rewrite it. Through the lens of Stoicism, we've uncovered the lies. That you must chase status to be valuable, that comfort is safer than courage, that discipline is a punishment, and that freedom is only for the lucky. But now you know better, and knowing is the first act of rebellion. Now it's time to choose. Choose to rise before the world tells you who you are. Choose to build instead of beg. Choose to act instead of explain. Choose purpose over comfort, and choose to become the Stoic version of yourself, the one who doesn't flinch in chaos, doesn't beg for approval, and doesn't settle for crumbs when he was meant to create his own table. You weren't born to be controlled, you were born to be conscious, and now that you see the chains, mental, emotional, societal, you're no longer a victim, you are the architect. So break the code, rebuild the mind, reclaim your life, because once you unleash your inner Stoic, you become unbreakable.